Hello folks, this is Mike, PC31 the Vinyl Policeman, and this video today is my 2022 top new album releases. I'll make this quite punchy because there are so many of these videos going around at the moment, which are great. I'm trying to watch as many as I possibly can. They're quite diverse actually. When I see different folks' top 10s, obviously there's been lots of great releases, but anyway, without no further ado, so my top 10 2022 new albums. So the first one for me is Jack White's album Fear of Dawn, and Jack White actually released 2 albums during 2022. This was the heavy blues rock one, the big electric guitar one. He released another album called Entering Heaven Alive, which I didn't get. I should have done actually, because the reviews I've heard of that, it sounds really good. It's more folky, it's softer than this one, but this is really well produced. You know, very Jack White. He plays most of the instruments on it, and obviously released on his Third Man record label. But that's my number 10. Number 9 for me is Ozzy's Patient Number 9, and this is Ozzy's 13th solo studio album, come out in September. Good album. My main criticism of this one actually is the fact that so many different musicians guested on it, as it did with his previous album as well, and it kind of loses a little bit of cohesion, but it's still a great heavy rock album. Andrew Watt produced it, who also produced his previous one, kind of quite a young producer, and as I say, it lacks a little bit of coherence for me. Could have been, I much prefer Ozzy when he's in a band situation, and I think it gels much better as opposed to having lots and lots of different guests. But Ozzy Osbourne, he's my number 9. My number 8, Tears for Fears, and Roland Orzabal actually was born in the same city as me, Portsmouth. But this is Tears for Fears' 7th studio album, came out in February, quite early in the year. It was 18 years since their last one, and this is a good, strong pop rock album, very polished as it normally is. It's certainly Songs of the Big Chair is still the classic for me, but this is a strong, enjoyable album. So that was number 8. Number 7, pains me to put this at number 7 because this is one of my musical heroes, but it's Bruce, and new studio album, but all covers, but still let Bruce in. It's R&B soul covers. Bruce's 21st studio album, come out in November. Ron Ananello kind of produced it with Bruce, and Ron Ananello plays virtually all the instruments. He even plays most of the guitars actually. Bruce only plays guitars on a few tracks and piano on a couple of things. But some really great things. It's growing on me the more I hear it. I shall see Bruce in concert a couple of times next year, and he'll play tracks on this and I'll absolutely love it. I'll be boogieing around. But Sega Sessions, when he did that as like a covers album, I felt Bruce really took that somewhere different, and that was just fantastic, the whole Sega Session project. But this one, I wish Bruce hadn't touched the big covers, the big songs, Night Shift, What Becomes of the Broken Heart, etc. But he did, and he didn't change them enough. But it's still, Bruce's voice on it is absolutely fantastic, especially for the guy's age. Superb. So an album I'll always put on, playing. I've got the CD as well, play in the car. Yeah, Bruce, number 7. Only the Strong Survive. Number 6 for me is Kula Shaker. This is Crispin Mills, Hayley Mills' son, Sir John Mills' grandson. Kula Shaker, they were huge in the mid-90s during the Britpop period, and the first album, K, went to number 1. But this album, which is their 6th album, it's a kind of a concept album. It's fantastic psych album, loads of great psych music on it. Very Beatles, you can hear the Who, you can hear the Kinks. Concept, as in the whole album starts off in a church with a leaky roof and little Sodbury, and you've got these spoken word interventions all the way through the album. But there are some absolutely fantastic psych guitar tracks on this, big psychoelectric ones. There's folk psychs, very George Harrison type songs. There's some really strong things in it, but there is some fodder which brings the album down, and the album is too long. But the artwork on it is just spectacular throughout. I've shown it in a previous video, but yeah, Kula Shaker, and it's called the First Congregational Church of the Eternal Love and Free Hugs. Yeah, Kula Shaker's 6th album. Strong. If it was a shorter album, it might have punched a little bit higher. Okay, so we're into the big top 5. During the year, got massively into Australian artist Courtney Barrett. She didn't release any albums during the year, but there's a couple I've kind of picked up of hers. This one, which was recommended by Ben Rankins, actually, Tell Me How You Really Feel, is absolutely fantastic. This one, Things Take Time, Courtney Barnett. Brilliant album again. So the reason why I raise her, actually, as I say, she didn't release any in 2022, but she took me down the road of this fella, because she's done some, an EP with him, she's done some recording with him, and also some live work, Kurt Weill. And so I kind of got this on the back of her. And also Randy Weaver. Randy's mentioned this on a number of videos, and he got me intrigued. I mean, just that cover's intriguing. But the Kurt Weill, his name and also the cover, doesn't relate to the music whatsoever. This is his 9th studio album. He was the ex-guitarist with War on Drugs, and he now plays with a band. His backing band's called the Violators, and they're on this. I'm playing in the background, actually. It's really chilled out Americana, folk rock, bit of country. He's written all the songs there. Apart from, he's got a Bruce Springsteen cover on here, Wages of Sin, which appeared on Bruce's fantastic box set tracks, which came out in 1998, I think it was. But yeah, Wages of Sin appeared on that one of Bruce's. But this is an album I'd really recommend. It's really easy listening, really well recorded, played. A fantastic album, very strong for me. And that comes in at number 5. Number 4. I saw this guy on the tour of this a few months ago. He was absolutely fantastic. And it's a solo album by Hugh Cornwell, the ex-frontman of the Stranglers, punk band Stranglers. And it's his 10th solo album. It was released in October. Red Rose was the single from it. But Hugh's actually done everything. He's played all the instruments, he's produced it, written everything. I think the only instrument he didn't play was harmonica, but he plays everything else. And it's a very, very strong album. And I saw him, as I say, do this live. He did this fantastic, the gig I saw him do, he did an hour first set of all Stranglers music, Stranglers classics, and it was brilliant. And with a bass player and a drummer as well. And then the second set, he did a lot of the material from this and some other solo work as well. But very, very strong album. It's called Moments of Madness. And as I say, that came out in October, so quite late in the year. Okay, big 3, folks. The number 1 is absolutely sublime. The way I've approached this is that I've kind of broken it down into sections, you know, kind of 8, 9, 10, had a good listen again, make sure I've got them in the right order, etc, etc. The second and the third were obvious to me. They flipped, but they're there. But the number 1 is my number 1 by an absolute mile. It's fantastic. Number 3, Wet Leg. And this is the debut album from Wet Leg. Chaise Lounge was obviously the first single off the album, which went absolutely viral. But they're a band from the Isle of Wight, which is just across the water from where I was born, Portsmouth. So they're very close to where I am and where I was born. Rhiannon Teasdale, Hester Chambers. I mean, Rhiannon is the lead vocalist, great lead vocals, but indie pop at its finest. I saw Steve Carlson talking about this one the other day. In fact, it was Steve Carlson's #1, and he said there are so many great hooks in this and so many tracks that get into your head. And there's some classic tracks on that. Let's hope their follow-up's going to be as strong. It'll be a difficult one to follow. Okay, number 2. Elvis. The Boy Named If. Really strong album. This is Elvis back to the late 70s, early 80s. This is back to My Aim Is True, This Year's Model. This is some great punchy guitar, punky type work on this. And there are some classic tracks on it as well. Got purple. Everything seems to be coloured vinyl this year, which is good. I don't actively seek it out, but it's great when it pops up. But yeah, double album. There was a child's book that went with this, which explained each song, and but there's some really strong material on this. So it's just made a few notes there. So yeah, it's with the Imposters. So Pete Thomas, Steve Naive, Pete Thomas drums, Steve Naive keyboards as normal. But the bass player on this is Danny Farrakha. No Bruce Thomas. Bruce Thomas, the original Tractions bass player, fell out with Elvis, I think in the 90s, and so it's the Imposters as opposed to the Attractions. But this, as I say, this is Elvis back to late 70s. This is a strong album. This is really good, and it's made my number 2. Brilliant. It's swapped around with Wet Leg, but today it's number 2. So my 2022 new album of the year, and it is by a long way actually, is the absolutely brilliant Spoon, Lucifer on the Sofa. And 10th album, studio album by Spoon, came out in February. This Hot Thoughts was before this one, which is, I've got that, it's a brilliant album as well. But Britt Daniel, fantastic vocalist, the guitars on that are superb. This is taking me down different roads as well, because the first track on this, Howled, which I love, was written by Bill Callahan. So I ended up buying a Bill Callahan album, which is great. So it's introduced me to his music, which is fantastic. But The Hardest Cut, which is the lead-off single, fantastic, wild, incredible, My Babe. The only track on this album which isn't a 10 for me is The Devil and Mr. Jones, which is it's a great track, but it's just, you know, it's probably my least favourite track on the album. But all the rest, the other 9, I think are fantastic. So Lucifer on the Sofa, they've actually issued a companion one. I think it was in November. It's a dub mix of this, but I haven't got it. I don't know if I will get it. I'm so happy with this one. Such a strong band, really strong album. I was introduced to Spoon early in the year because I hadn't heard of them by Brian, Embryonic Robot, and I've now got about 3 or 4 Spoon albums, and I intend to collect more of them. But this is my number 1 for 2022. High recommend. Absolutely fantastic album. Okay folks, so Happy New Year to you. Looking forward to seeing all your top 10s, and please leave any comments. Thanks folks, bye.